Right, well, Talofa Lava bikers, apologies for the lack of production of any videos for most of the last 12 months, for reasons which you'll all be thoroughly familiar with. However, we're getting back to normality, so time to get back in gear and try and relearn the little bit I knew about how to use my camera and stuff. Last year was supposed to be the big year to get really up to speed on it. Let's slow down here. Thank you, Mr. Man. Alright, so anyway, so we're back in business, and the topic for today is an issue I thought about at the time when the 2019 came out, and that is this is a 2016 CB500 I've got, and when the 2019, I think it was, the major upgrade came out, it was a live issue as to whether or not I should upgrade to the new model, and I guess it potentially still is. So I thought I'd just talk through my logic on whether or not to buy the new CB500. So in short, and I have not test ridden the new 500, so this is just going off what I know from the advertisements and spec sheet. Hello biker. There's supposedly some changes, minor changes in terms of power, and I believe some reviewers say that you can feel that. That doesn't get any weight at all for me because, it's a 47 horsepower bike. It is what it is by and large. I'm not saying you can't make it better in some respects, but it's just not a big deal. If I wanted more power, I would buy something different with more cc's. So that doesn't really get any credit at all. The new display, I think it's a personal thing as to whether you think it looks better or not. I'm fine with the old display. So again, that's not something that bothers me one way or the other. The only thing is that I have found on a road bike that it would be nice to have a gear position indicator. So I know quite a lot of riders like that, and I've come to appreciate why that is. So that would be nice to have. It's certainly not enough to cause me to change the bike, but it would be nice to have. I mean, of course, I could deal with that by putting on a little accessory standalone gear position indicator. So I'm aware of that. They're not particularly expensive, but there's so many bits of wire running around the bike already with auxiliary lights and everything else, and heated hand grips and everything. I'm just not really bothered to have another set of wiring on there, so I've left that for the time being. Anyway, so on to the more serious stuff though. So what are the things that I think are actually quite important and might push me to buy the new bike? So I guess the next thing on the list, which actually is important, is the front wheel, the 19-inch front wheel. So I think that would be very nice to have. So why do I want a 19-inch front wheel? I think primarily because it expands your choice of tyres quite substantially. If you're wanting to not go off-road but onto gravel roads and tracks a bit more, you can certainly got a much wider range of suitable tyres if you've got a 19-inch front wheel. So that's an important one for me, and certainly a reason that is one of the things that has got me thinking about whether or not to change the bike. It will be good to have that flexibility. As it stands, I don't really do any off-road, and I've got no intention of doing really. I'm not going to say hardcore. Hardcore off-road to me is a motocross track or an enduro track, so that's hardcore off-road. I've got no intention of going what I would classify even vaguely hardcore off-road on a 200 kilo bike like this. But if you're going to do more tracks and dirt roads and that sort of thing, it certainly would be a consideration. Here in the UK, it would be kind of nice to have. There's places in Wales and Scotland where that might be a bit useful, but the reality is that 95% of what I do is this sort of road. So it's a nice to have, but it's not a decisive factor in this environment, I don't think. So the next thing that I would like to have on the new bike, and sort of the final thing which I think is a really potentially big issue, is the assistant slipper clutch. So I don't know too much about the assisting and the slipping bit, but I do believe that it is a lot lighter to use, and that would be very useful. If you've watched any of my other videos, I do sort of think that's one of the biggest downsides of the 47 horsepower is on a long day you do a lot of gear shifting, and it's not a big deal, but a light clutch would be quite nice to have. So really I think those are the two things that would have pushed me towards upgrading this bike into the new one, is the clutch and the 19-inch front wheel, to get a better choice of rubber on the front. There is sort of a final consideration, and I don't know, I haven't test ridden the bikes, but I do just wonder whether I might like the feel of a 19-inch front tyre just a little bit more as well. I think primarily because I have an entirely off-road dirt biking background. I think the sort of the snappy handling of the 17-inch wheels on a road bike to me feels a little bit more like instability. But that's just, I think that's a personal thing, and it's just to do with 40 years of riding dirt bikes and what I've come to see as being or consider to be a normal feeling on a bike. So I don't know whether the 19-inch front on the little Honda would feel significantly different. That would be a thing for a test ride, but that is another thought that I have in the back of my mind. Anyway, so actually, are those two things enough to make me think about upgrading? Actually, they are. To be entirely honest, I'm lucky in that a few £1,000 cost to trade the bike is not really an issue for me. But and those things would be nice to have. So why, you might be thinking, have I not then got the new bike, and why am I not talking to you from it now? And the answer to that is pretty straightforward, and that is that I am chronically height challenged. So I'm sort of 5'6", 5'7", it's about 167 centimetres for the metric ones. But my legs are quite short even for my height. So in terms of inseam, on a pair of jeans sort of thing, it's about 27 inches. So for someone of my waist, I think normal is about 32 for men, and a short is about a 30 inch. And so even if I get short jeans, I need to get another 2 or 3 inches taken off them. And so, it's an issue, as anyone who's short will know, that's a big issue when you get out onto the road. Now obviously you will have picked up that I've ridden a lot of dirt bikes and they are tall, so I am well used to dealing with tall bikes, but in an off-road environment. It's quite a different issue with a 200 kilo bike on the road, and particularly with the UK roads, which are quite rough. There's some very big potholes around the place, and often in very bad places. And it's just a sort of place, if you have an awkward stop with the traffic and your foot goes out, there's a 2-inch pothole and you're normally okay on your bike, that could be just enough that the bike will start going such that you can't catch it and you finish up on the ground in an intersection. And yeah, that's not the end of the earth by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very far from ideal. And the biggest thing, I think, is it's just in your mind all the time. So I have ridden the Rally Raid Stage 2 version of this bike in North America, which is much higher and tippy-toed around, and it was fine. Most of the time when I was needing to stop on the North American sealed roads, they were in very good nick, and even gas stations was all very level, and it's not a problem. But in the UK, I wouldn't really fancy that, and the trouble is there's always just a worry in the back of your mind, isn't it? If you have that situation where if you have the wrong combination, you're going to finish up on the ground, it just undermines your confidence, and you don't need that. As some of you may know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I've actually lowered this, the 16 model, 2 inches with a Lust Racing lowering link, which was a great modification as well. And that gives me extra, so I've got plenty of reach now. But in any case, long story short, the bottom line is I'm chronically short, and that 19-inch front wheel, which I'd really quite like for tyres and perhaps feel of the bike, also raises the bike by a couple of inches. And yep, I could definitely ride it in normal circumstances, but I would be getting on the tippy toes, and in those nasty unexpected situations it would just be a wee bit touch and go. And I don't need that in a place like the UK with lots of traffic and so on. So that really, folks, is long story short, is yes, I would like the new model Honda, and actually I would pay the money required to upgrade it for the improvements it's got if I had longer legs, but I do not. So over to you. I guess that's my thoughts. Clearly, my issue is my height, but I think it's worth mentioning because it's something that a lot of reviewers don't have to worry about and don't talk about. So there's lots of reviews of people doing CB500s who have got plenty of leg length and could ride any number of bigger bikes, and so they don't tend to think about these things. So for the shorter ones out there, my advice would be just be aware that it is significantly taller than the old model, and if in doubt, that's a test ride thing, and it'll depend upon what part of the world you live in, how much traffic you've got to deal with, how good or bad is the road conditions, and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's about it. For what it's worth, it's good to talk to you guys. Ciao for now.